Hi, this is Rabbits. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about my self-cast Arc Inquisitor build in Path of Exile 3.3 Incursion. This is the 5th build guide I've put together. It's an activity I very much enjoy doing, but it takes a tremendous amount of time. So if you enjoy the content, all I ask is you consider subscribing for more in the future. Without further ado, let's get into it. Like I said previously, this is a self-cast Arc build in a meta where most people are using Arc with traps and totems. Those builds are fine, and likely stronger even, but self-casting Arc is definitely viable and can clear almost game content, including Shaper and Uber Atziri. I've attempted Uber Elder on this build. The damage is fine, but it's difficult to stay alive in that arena for almost any build, so Uber Elder viability is ultimately up to your individual skill level. This is a fun, fast build with great clear speed and a few nice defensive layers, including the ability to freeze most enemies and cause chain explosions of packs at higher mob densities. These abilities are facilitated through the unique Call of the Brotherhood and Impulse's Broken Heart, which we'll get into later. Additional build highlights include a 7,000 point effective life pool, 30 or more block chance, insane mana leech, and the ability to generate all charges. Let's start our gear discussion by talking about gem selection. Your 6-link Arc setup should be Arc, Empower 4, Increased Critical Strikes, Controlled Destruction, Spell Echo, and added lightning damage. You have some latitude with what you put in your Arc setup. This is going to be one of the highest available damage configurations. You should aim to get a level 21 Arc, and if you can afford it, a level 21 Val Arc. Val Arc is nice in certain instances, such as killing packs with allies cannot die totems, but it is of limited utility, so concentrate on getting a level 21 Arc first. We also support a second damaging skill setup, Lightning Spire Trap. Lightning Spire Trap is used to stack tons of damage onto bosses. Drop 3 traps onto anything and they just melt, including Split Phase Uber Atziri, where using Arc would kill us due to the Mirror Reflect. Lightning Spire Trap is supported by added lightning damage, increased critical strikes, added cold damage, and in our gloves or helmet, trap and mine damage for an effective 5-link. I'm also supporting it with blind on my particular gloves, which is nice but ultimately unnecessary. For our aura setup, we are using Wrath, Herald of Thunder, and Enlighten. We swap out Herald of Thunder for various Purity auras as necessary, such as running Purity of Fire for Uber Atziri. Since we have decent mana regen and insane mana leech, we can easily sustain a mana-hungry Arc while still reserving the majority of our mana without the need to run a mana pot. For our movement skill setup, we are running Shield Charge with faster attacks and Fortify. Having access to Shield Charge is a huge advantage to this build, and interweaving the use of attack skills and spells is important for the Inquisitor Ascendancy node, Instruments of Virtue. Rounding out this build, we have 2 cast when damage taken setups. You have a lot of latitude here and can be creative. For our first cast when damage taken setup, we are running a low-level cast when damage taken along with Immortal Call, Increased Duration, and Tempest Shield. Our second setup is a level 20 cast with damage taken along with Assassin's Mark, Phase Run, and Summon Lightning Golem. The choice of curse is up to you, and Phase Run is effectively an open slot for your use. Now let's talk about gear. Our chest piece is a 6-linked Impulse's Broken Heart. Impulses is not a mandatory item, but it will greatly enhance your clear speed due to causing chain explosions that rip through packs, especially at higher mob densities. Its effect is somewhat reminiscent of Val Ice Nova, except for it's free and unconditional. A rare chest would be okay and allow for easier gearing in other slots, but ultimately I think you would want a 6-link Impulses on your build. Our first ring slot is called the Brotherhood, which allows us to turn 40% of our lightning damage into cold. We crit so often and do so much general damage that we can reliably freeze just about anything, including rogue exiles and mid-tier bosses. Our other ring slot is Varek's Grip, which provides life and mana leech as well as pretty decent damage. It isn't strictly mandatory in a completed build, but in one that's struggling with mana problems, it's a great addition. It also has great synergy with Call of the Brotherhood, so I highly suggest it. For our weapon, we want to probably be using a Scepter with spell damage mods. The Shaped mod, gain up to 20% of elemental damage as extra chaos damage, is going to be the single best mod available for this build, but Temple Scepters and just well-rolled Spellcaster Scepters are also great. You also might be able to find a good dagger, but Scepters generally beat them. The budget option here is a Doriani's Catalyst, which is great for elemental life leech until you can afford a Varek's Grip. Our shield is a generic Spellcaster shield with high life and block chance if possible. Look for spell damage, spell crit, cast speed, and lightning damage as well. For our gloves, we want a shaped item that adds a damage link to our Lightning Spire Trap setup, round out with life and resistances. For our helmet, we're looking at a rare with an Arc enchantment on it, preferably 40% increased Arc damage. You could use a shaped helmet here and run Lightning Spire Trap in your helmet, but you'll likely not be able to get an Arc enchantment on a shaped helmet, so there's a trade-off here. Our amulet should have high damage and life. Amulets are a good source of crit multi, so try to get some there. Since talismans are available in Incursion, we can find some pretty nice items on the market this week. As far as boots, we need at least one good Dextral on our gear, and just about the only place to get it is boots. Other than that, we want 30% movement speed, resistances, and life. For our belt, we'll want either a good Stygian or leather belt with lots of resistances and life. Having an open prefix also allows us to add movement speed for a small quality of life bump if we can afford it. We'll likely need at least one Abyssal Jewel to put in our Stygian, for instance, with life and as many damage mods as you can afford. For jewels, we'll want one Intuitive Leap slotted between Witch and Shadow so we can pick up Overcharge for some random charge generation. We'll also want a Watcher's Eye with Wrath mods. The mod X% of lightning damage is leached as mana when affected by Wrath is actually very important. It allows us to reserve the majority of our mana comfortably and lessen our reliance on the more conditional mana leech provided by Barek's Grip. The rest of our jewels are traditional spellcaster jewels. Prioritize life, crit multi, spell damage, lightning damage, cast speed, and crit strike chance. For flasks, I prefer 2 life flasks, 1 adrenaline, a diamond flask, and an Atziri's Promise. The diamond flask is one of your biggest sources of additional damage, so definitely don't forget it. If you're having mana issues, drop Atziri's Promise for a mana flask. Let's talk about our passive tree and ascendancy. I've chosen to play this build as a Templar Inquisitor, but it could be played as a variety of ascendancies, including Witch Elementalist, Scion Ascendant, or Shadow Trickster. As Inquisitor, we want to take Righteous Providence, Inevitable Judgment, Instruments of Virtue, and Augury of Penitence. Don't bother with the ascendancy nodes that give you consecrated ground, as we aren't stationary enough to take advantage of them. As for the rest of the tree, it's a pretty standard life-based spellcaster tree. Mine prioritizes life over damage, but you can tweak yours to suit. For Pantheon, I've chosen Soul of the Brine King for stun mitigation, and Soul of Rislatha for free life flask charges. So those are the basics of this build. Mine is fairly well tuned. I can imagine it will take you some time and effort to match my power level, and quite the budget. I imagine I've sunk over 30 exalts into this build. Certainly you can clear most content on much less, but for instance, Uber Atziri requires some pretty dialed in gear. For reference, my hideout tooltip is about 120,000 currently with auras up, though I beat Shaper on maybe 80,000 tooltip DPS for the first time. This build can run most map bots, avoid Elemental Reflect, and maybe work around Leech, but everything else is pretty runnable. It is hardcore viable, though I'd probably recommend a build with more life or defensive players. So, that's the build. It's a fun take on self-cast Arc with no major downsides and great clear speed. If you're interested in self-casting Arc instead of trapping like the current meta, this is a good template to start with. If you enjoyed this guide, I encourage you to like and subscribe. These guides take an enormous amount of effort to put together, on top of all the build refining that has to be done. Of course, this build was put together with many ideas from others, so for their help I'm very grateful. This has been God of Rabbits. Thanks for watching and have a great day.